If you're a high achiever, means that you're in a high paying, demanding job, which comes with decent amount of responsibility and accountability. You might be handling a P&L, or you might be leading a function, or you might be leading an important project at work. And you're in this situation where you're like, it shouldn't be this hard. I did sign up for a challenge, but should it really be this hard? Am I just, there is this difficulty that comes when you're climbing the Mount Everest and or the base camp, depending on your fitness level. And that is good stress. It stretches you. You might cry, but it feels good. Why? Because you have people who've got your back. You've got your team, you've got a coach, and all these nice things are happening, and you're enjoying the journey also at some level. And something in you wanted this so bad that all of this effort feels worth it. But there are times when we pick up challenges which either we are not really cut out for. For example, if I were to go, I don't know, swimming, I am not a good swimmer at all. But I did learn scuba diving and it felt terrifying. Like, I still have to get to a place where it feels okay. So I just wonder, like, if that was the best thing for me to do on a vacation, because it really felt like a lot of work, honestly. Anyway, I don't know if that was a good example, but the point I'm trying to make is sometimes you're just not cut out for the thing that you picked up, or sometimes you just got a bad coach or a bad area. The setup itself hasn't really set you up for success, and that can also erode your confidence. Now, because life is not linear and easy, and you can't neatly attribute things, okay, this is what I am causing, and this is what the manager is causing, and this is what this role is causing, or this is where the dynamics are. You're living in a living system. So it's really hard sometimes to decipher, is this me? Do I need to try harder? Do I need to change my mindset? Do I need a better attitude here? Or is it that I should conserve my energy and my potential and look for some other place where it might be better? So I'm going to just um, touch a little bit more on why you might find how you got here in the first place. And I can relate because it's happened to me also. For example, my first role post MBA, I picked up a retail sales and operations role. Now, I was not someone I'm an ideas thinking person. And that's why this whole coach thing really works well for me. I was not an execution heavy person, not an on ground person. But I'm really glad I did that. At the same time, in hindsight, I understand that setup was not the right setup for me. I wasn't a great fit culturally there, and the role also wasn't really a good fit. So I was stuck in a double whammy situation. But I kind of stayed there simply to prove myself. It was my first role. How could I say no? How could I suck at the first thing that I pick up? Or even in later on in roles that you might pick up, sometimes it just feels like, okay, if I just put in a little more, maybe I'm just an inch away from the breakthrough and I shouldn't give up so soon. But that sometimes is a sunk cost fallacy, and the art is in recognizing it. So before I move forward, I let me introduce myself. I am Mansi Gupta. I am a career coach and also a business coach. I help mid-career professionals, high-achieving professionals who've followed the path and now are feeling like they want a change in their career. So that's where I come in. I help people with career pivots and I help them launch solopreneurship businesses. That's why the career slash business coach. And this is the Rich, Free, and Limitless podcast, where we are having all these real conversations, because on paper, on surface, our jobs and our lives look enviable. But as any human being knows that every grass is always greener on the other side. There are real problems and issues, and there are real conversations to be had. So this is the platform where we're having these real conversations. I would love to hear from you and answer your questions if you have any. Just drop questions in comments whenever you watch this, and I would be happy to answer. Okay. Now, this is the first thing I want to talk about is understand your own DNA, understand where you came from, understand your own wiring. And when we graduated from really competitive exams and competitive schools, um, great schools, the IITs or the IIMs, somewhere the DNA becomes I am a fighter, I don't give up. We are also called the change makers, the torch bearers. When we are hired, we're told that in as many words that we expect you're the young blood and we're hiring you, so make changes. And we pride ourselves on our grit. If there's one thing that we can do is persistence. Now, when you're wired that way, this is a massive strength, but like every strength, there is a flip side to it. And the flip side happens when you're not being very discerning about whether the battle that you're on, is it worth fighting or is it worth walking away? Is it really worth your energy? Because some of these career situations, you will look back and you'll be like, I am glad I picked this up. I am glad I did this. And it was worth it. Others, you will be like, shit, I should have left earlier. What was I doing there? I was just stuck in self-doubt and questioning my decision, and I should have known better earlier. A lot like breakups, actually. Like where you're like, I should have seen it coming, or it's been, why did I stay so long? But so this guide today, this conversation today, we are getting to the heart of this, and we are talking about whether is this situation worth being in, or is it really a derailer? Okay, so the first thing, these are just some red flags that I know. You know the basic psychological safety. As somebody who's at a mid to senior level, I'm not expecting that you're going to have too much issue when it comes to toxic work environments, but things get more sophisticated as you move up the ladder. How so? You might be given a lot of responsibility, a lot of power, and that's what you've been told. So you were told that, come do this for us, and it means so much. Um, so you get excited and you're like, okay, I'm doing this. Now, at the same time, the question is, are you being well resourced? Are you being given the supportive resources that you need? Or did you find yourself in a legacy team trying to do an innovative thing? Or maybe you just don't have team members, or maybe you just don't have the influencing power or capacity. In all of these cases, the expectation is that you're going to deliver Mercedes, but the parts that you've been given is kind of Maruti. I don't know if you. I hope you're getting this. The idea is, are you fully resourced to deliver on the KPIs that you've signed up for? And also, many times, just be careful. As in, one is an ambitious, big, hairy, audacious goal, which is great, and then the other is what you're actually measured on a day-to-day basis. While your goals can be really ambitious and high up in the sky, your day-to-day metrics need to be grounded in reality and need to be measuring your progress versus the present state versus your progress versus the distance that you've got to get there, because that's the unknown bit. It's the progress from versus the past that can be measured. So be careful around these um, critical conversations and negotiations where you might jump into things really quickly out of excitement, only to realize that it's not going to work in the long run. Second is values mismatch. This is how it might show up. Your values essentially show up in how you work. If you're someone who prioritizes speed, over quality. You may not do very well in an organization which is like making scientific instruments, maybe, where precision is really really important, but you're like speed and messy. So the same thing here. Sometimes you're hired simply because you do bring a different mindset. You come with a different set of values, and you're encouraged to execute. Your ideas are really praised, but as soon as internal friction comes, that's when the leader can start to kind of cop out, where they're like, maybe just tread this carefully. You're rocking the boat too much. Um, Things don't really work like this over here. Please take some time to acclimatize. This is good advice in general, it is. But at the same time, ask yourself, is it that the standards are the same for everyone, or is it that there are double standards in play? If there are double standards in play, that's a red flag. But if everyone's being held to the same standard, then you're fine. Um, so this isn't, and if you're finding yourself in a situation like this, please understand that it is not about you. It is about the stakeholders or the leader who's setting you up. Um, the third one is the trust deficit, where you're doing the right things, you're having the conversations, you're trying to align everyone. You have 100 meetings, but then there aren't really actual actions. So what you're seeing is kind of passive aggressive resistance, where on the surface the person says yes, but they don't really back it up. So you kind of got the mandate, but no one else got the memo. So no, and their incentives haven't been aligned in such a way that it benefits the common objective that you guys are on. If that is the case, where their objectives lead them somewhere else and yours lead somewhere to a different destination, guess what? That alignment is not going to really happen, and you will find yourself as the lone ranger on this path. Uh, you might start feeling isolated, that no one really has your back, and that's okay. But understand again that this is about how the system is being designed. So we've covered three things right now. One is, when you've been given a mandate, were you given the resources that you need? Really ask yourself, because we have this tendency as high achievers to be like, yeah, yeah, I can do it. I am Superman or Superwoman and I can manage somehow. Or I just need this much. Like, what we must be needing is this much. This is optimal. Bare minimum is this. And we might find ourselves asking somewhere in the middle of this bare minimum and optimal. Don't do that. Like, set yourself up for success. Ask for the resources that you need, which are more than optimal, so that you get to a place where you are able to execute. The second is, look at how things are done, and are you okay on a average day with the way things are done? So you're kind of not diametrically opposite, but somewhat at an angle from the way things are done. That would be okay. But if you're kind of leaning towards diametrically opposite, sooner or later it's going to hit somewhere, some kind of resistance, and you're not and you're going to encounter friction. The third is, look at how the organization's incentives have been designed. The two skip levels up and down and sideways, whoever you need to align, is your KRA also reflecting in their KRAs, or is it just your problem? Okay. So if you're finding in any yourself in any of these situations, it'll show up as friction, and you might feel that these are just tests of character or grit. You just need to try harder. You need to try a different approach. You need to improve your EQ. You need to improve your communication skills, alignment skills, and whatnot. Please learn to recognize these systemic issues so that you can solve for the system and not point the gun towards yourself and try to solve for yourself. You deserve to be set up for success. Next, let's talk about the sunk cost fallacy. Now, we put in our heart and souls into our jobs, and challenges are great, but there is really no harm in getting in 6 months in, you realizing this isn't it, or 1 year in, you're realizing this isn't it. It's okay. No one's going to question your capability or your track record. What will matter is, are you someone who has reflected on what happened? Are you able to assign accountabilities in a clear, grounded fashion? Which means, are you able to take accountability for the things that you didn't do or you did, and the things that the system or the leadership didn't do or did too? At the end of the day, if you really are serious about unlocking your full potential and unlocking your best performance, then you've got to find a way to align everything. Swimming against the tide is really exhausting. So you've got to make sure that the tides and the river flow is in line with where you want to go. Because that's when the challenges that you will encounter will excite you. If you keep swimming against the tide or there's too much friction, it's just going to feel draining, and those challenges are going to bog you down versus excite you. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about this. You can ask yourself these questions around: am I resourced? Am I supported? Um, are there double standards? Are the expectations fair? Are other people being held accountable? But if it's still kind of confusing and you feel, not okay in this entire thing, really just check in with your body when you're surrounded by these people or when you're in the meetings. If you feel the need to protect yourself, please understand that you're not feeling really safe here. And I'm not saying that it means that you just walk away. It means that your body is trying to tell you something. It's time to listen more carefully and understand where is it really coming from. Okay. Next is, we've talked about the environment. So, we talked about whether you're being set up for success or not. Role fit is somewhere like right in the middle of it. It means that you, does your temperament, your wiring, your energy, your personality, is it really a good fit for the work that you're trying to do, the role that you're trying to play? Because remember that nothing happens in isolation. You could be a marketer, but a marketer in a hyper growth company, small company, or a marketer in a manufacturing large, massive setup, or a marketer who is working on a cutting edge, innovative AI product versus a marketer who's working on FMCG. The context is really very different. And it has nothing to do with how great a marketer you are or how relevant your experience is. Sometimes it's really just about, are you the right kind of horse for the course? Um, and this doesn't mean that you're not good enough. Um, that's the mistake that I see a lot of high achievers make, and I've made it myself, where I just, anything bad happens, it's my fault, and I should just try harder, and I should improve myself, and I need to fix myself, or it is my failure. But the thing is, it's not. Oh, you don't need to make it a personal failure. Please understand that it is just a misalignment, and you can change it. You can choose something different. Okay, what do I mean by that? So the first one is the context. Like I said, a company going from 0 to 1, a company which is scaling, a company which is already scaled, a company which is trying to beat competition in a mature market, a challenger brand versus a leading brand. All of them require a very different mindset, mentality. And if yours doesn't match with the place that you're in, it's time to really give it a good thought. It's not one of those things where, okay, I'm going to put myself outside my comfort zone and I'm going to get there, which I will come to in a second. But really look at whether you can, and look at the risk profile of the role, look at the uncertainty profile of the role, look at the speed of the role, look at the agility, look at precision. Like, because these are values which sit at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And if the role demands this and you are sitting here, it doesn't mean that you're broken or there's something wrong. It just means that this isn't a great fit, and you're just not meant for this. Okay. The other could be, there is cultural nuance, yes, but sometimes your role requires you to do certain things. For example, if you are trying to roll something new out, you might have to do a lot of alignment, or you might find yourself doing, if you're in a, I don't know, where you have to interface with unions, maybe you have to do a lot of negotiation, or you're in a sales role, so suddenly you have to do a lot of negotiation. Um, but if you're someone who really highly values harmony, avoids conflict at all costs, then you're not going to perform as well in this role. And is again nothing, it doesn't say much about you. It just means that it's not your strength area. And maybe just switch to a role where harmony is what is needed. And that's what you can deliver on. So, what is the flip, the cost of being in these kind of roles where you're not really a fit is it erodes your confidence. You might have been an amazing performer in one role, and in the next role you're suddenly very, very average or below average, and that stings. It happened to me once and it really stung. I i couldn't handle being mediocre or below average in the role that I'm doing. But I didn't real and I tried really, really hard to fix it and get better at it. But some battles are really not worth fighting. You're better off switching to a context and a role which plays to your strengths. I'm not saying don't address weaknesses or failures, but l- address the weaknesses which are coming in the way of unlocking more of your strengths. So you you swim in the tide towards your strengths, and when you encounter a weakness that's a blocker, you kind of address that to the bare minimum, and so that you get unlocked and you continue to move forward, versus you saying, you know what, I'm going to swim against the tide and I'm going to fix all these weaknesses, and even though my strengths don't apply, I'm going to be here. That won't serve you. Okay. Next, there are, I don't think a lot of people understand this, but a lot of us have, there are multiple dimensions of intelligence, and in NLP, they are called meta programs. Everyone has a certain wiring and a way of operating. So, for example, you might be someone who gets a lot of satisfaction from relationships, being around people, and then there are some people who get a lot more satisfaction by being around objects or just technical mastery, craftsmanship. Those are two different polar opposites. Same thing, there are some people who like to be generalists, jack of all trades. I'm one of them. There are some people who prefer to be specialists. There are some people who find it easier to do big picture thinking. They think in big chunks. There are some people who have attention to detail, and they like precision. Some people are wired to sell more, and some people are wired to build. Some people respond better to loss aversion. Some people respond better to desire and all the things that they can have. So it's called from away and towards kind of orientation. Are you someone who likes to move away from some things that you don't like, or are you someone who moves towards things that you like? Now, again, I'm not, these are pretty much hardwired. These are hard for you to shift. So if you were a generalist who decides to pick up a specialist role, you're going to be bored out of your senses. And again, you're not going to be the excellent performer that you want to be. So it's important to understand who you are. Things, even small things like how you might absorb information. Some people are auditory, some people are more visual. So if you're a visual person doing more speeches or texts or those kind of things, it'll bog you down. So you're better off understanding how your brain works, and instead of trying to mold it and twist it, it's better that you choose roles and places and positions so that it's working with your brain and not against your brain. Okay. So I think we've kind of already touched a little bit on this. There are also roles that people tend to play. If you've always been the social glue or the peacekeeper, or are you the agony aunt? What is your wiring? What motivates you and what drains you? And it's easy to figure out. Like, just make a list of everything that you do and put a star in front of it if it energizes you, put a question mark against it if it drains you. And that gives you a good sense of how you're wired and how you're not wired. And then look at how you index in the role on a day-to-day basis. If you ended up with tons of stars and very few question marks, awesome, congratulations, great job. You are in alignment with where you're supposed to be. But if you got more question marks and less stars, then maybe you need to you need to redesign your role or switch it entirely so that you're in a better fit role. Lastly, this is the concept that I want to share with you. Now, all of us have these different zones in which we operate. The most outside is zone of incompetence, things we don't really do very well. For example, it could be I'm not a great plumber. That's my zone of incompetence. Zone of competence could be, for example, I am a decent cook. So I would say I am a competent cook. Zone of excellence is I am great at storytelling. It's something that I have picked up as a skill, or even deck making. Zone of genius is something that I'm amazing at or you're amazing at. It also energizes you. Now, that for me is deep conversations with people. And that's why coaching conversations light me up, because it is my zone of genius. And my zone of genius is also spotting patterns. And again, that coaching conversations allow me to do that. So that's why that is my zone of genius. Now, obviously, you're going to be most comfortable in your zone of genius and you're going to be most uncomfortable in your zone of incompetence. Now, how do you apply the advice to go outside your comfort zone to stretch? You're going to operate in your zone of genius and you're going to pick up a project which requires you to build on top of it. So, for example, for me, starting a business is new, or like getting building a digital business is new. And so those things are what's going to stretch me. Or showing up like this on a live on LinkedIn is a stretch for me. So this is all outside my comfort zone, but please understand I'm still operating in my zone of genius. It's very much up my alley. Versus a zone of incompetence. Like I said, like if I were on an on ground, high travel, high people interface role, I would be burnt out so quick, because that is outside my comfort zone and not my rat race. And I have seen this happen to me so many times that I just don't do well in large groups. It drains my energy big time. I can come back from a group trip completely burned out, even though it was a vacation. So that's just how I am wired. And if there's one takeaway that you can take from this conversation, please understand that there's nothing wrong with you. You are fine. So if things are not working for you, you're allowed to change the setting. To quote Kevin Spacey from House of Cards, he talks about changing the table setting. If it's not working for you, you can change that. Changing yourself is also great, but it needs to be in the direction of your zone of genius, something that energizes you. So stop making yourself wrong all the time and blaming yourself. And instead, if you can just focus on self acceptance, self compassion, self trust and saying, you know what if nothing was wrong with me? What if this is how I'm wired? What if this is good? Where can I use this? Where would I shine if I am this person? If this is who I am, where would I shine and how can I get there quickly and easily? That's the question to ask versus saying, oh shit, like the investment banking is the best thing, but none of my traits match, so there must be something really wrong with me. I mean, that's what we did in B school, and that's the thing stuff that we have to unlearn, and that's what the phase two of your career is meant to do, to just help you see that nothing is wrong with you, and you don't need to fit into molds. More things have to be molded around you so that you can truly shine and unlock your potential. Okay, so we've talked about this, and I think I'm going to, yeah, just flash this quick decision making flowchart. If you feel safe at work, and we talked about the three tests, if that is a no, any of them, then the idea is you quit ASAP. And when I say ASAP, it doesn't mean you start typing your resignation right now. Obviously, look at your finances, look at what options exist for you outside. And then, but then directionally, you know that this isn't about you. You don't have to be emotionally invested in this anymore. You can move on. And then the next is look at your own wiring and look at the role that you're meant to be doing right now and see if there's some kind of restructuring that can happen if it's not a fit, and if there's any kind of mindset intervention that you can bring in that will help you perform better. And finally, look at if both of them are kind of, if it's a no, then it's clear. But if it's a yes and still you're feeling disconnected, then it's time to look into who you are becoming and where you're feeling called to go. So it's about understanding what your true desires are, what's your vision, what are your values, what is your purpose, and then realign your career and kind of make that transition, whether it's a change of industry or a function or just starting something of your own. Whatever it is, I hope that this helps you decide, and if you're looking for help on this, then please go ahead and DM me and we can work together. Meanwhile, I do these free live streams and I send out a weekly newsletter called the Rich, Free, and Limitless newsletter. You can go ahead, find my profile, and subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll keep getting all of these insights to your inbox and you won't miss any of them. Thank you for tuning in.